Welcome folks to our new anime. And it starts from Alan writing a letter to Lydia telling her about his new job after failing the court sorcerer exam. Alan was top in the class, so even his professor was shocked to see him of all people failing. But that doesn't change the fact Alan is smart, and it just so happened that a friend of his was finding a tutor for his daughter. So he asked Alan, but only in words. In reality, the professor had every bit of intention to dump this job on him without his consent, and even confirmed with the other party that he's sending a tutor. The child Alan has to teach is the princess of the Duke household who wants to get into the Royal Academy. Alan already has experience in dealing with the Duke's daughter, so everything was set up for him. That's how Alan arrived in the northern territory of Duke Howard. The Duke sent the butler and a maid in training to welcome Alan at the station. But there was only a little bit of space in the car, so Graham asked Ellie to sit in Alan's lap for the ride. She was still young, so it worked for now, but the weather was getting to her. So Alan warmed up the car with a little bit of heat magic for her. The ride became comfortable, and that's how they arrived at the Duke's mansion. But Alan had already figured out she's not a maid but the Duke's daughter from her accessories and clothes. Her name was Tina Howard, and she's a very shy kid. And the real Ellie is here, who's truly a maid in training. Alan has a natural way to get along with girls, so Graham was being careful and warned the guy in advance. So Alan quickly went over to meet Duke Walter. Well, in context, he did hire Alan to tutor his daughter, but in reality he wants Alan to demotivate her about getting into the Royal Academy. All the 4 dukes of the Empire come from the lineage of 4 heroes who were vessels for top-tier elemental spirits. And the Howards are the ones with ice and protect the north. But Walter has no heir to continue the family because he has only 2 daughters and his wife has passed away. The eldest is already in the academy, who's good at magic, but Tina is the opposite. She does have mana, but for some reason she can't cast even a basic spell. But due to her strong sense of responsibility, she sees it as her duty to get proper education like others and succeed the dukedom. But aside from that, Tina has acquired a good amount of plant cultivating knowledge from her mother's research. So her research is valuable to the family, and that's the reason Walter doesn't want her to leave. But Alan asked the Duke to consider Tina's feelings and told him that if she were to somehow learn magic, would he consider sending her to the academy. Walter agreed and gave him his word. But contrary to Tina, Walter wants Alan to teach Ellie alongside her because she's Graham's grandchild and his family has been serving the Howards for generations. Alan had no problem with that, and certainly Ellie also wanted to stick close to Tina. So from the next day their first lesson started. Tina had a library inside of her greenhouse, and then Alan started with determining how smart she is with a little test. And she turned out to be every bit of a genius Alan had heard from Walter. It reminded Alan of Lydia. She also had the same IQ, and by now she has mastered the supreme spell of her family line. After that, Tina opened up to Alan about how every tutor before him left because she wasn't good in magic. But Alan promised to stick by her side no matter what. For that, he asked Ellie to bring some candles and asked both of them about the elementals. The 2 knew all the basics, and Tina was born with ice affinity, which takes water and wind magic. But Alan reminded her of the time in the car when he heated the atmosphere, which took 3 elements, so he believes there's no natural talent or inborn affinity. Then he asked Tina to showcase any spell, but at the time of activation she failed. But it did confirm that Tina can cast magic, but something is getting in between. So to cheer her up, he bloomed different elemental lotuses to prove that if one decides they can do anything. But on the other side, Lydia was pissed at Alan for leaving without asking her. Well, Alan doesn't know what is in store for him in the future, so he concentrates on teaching. Over the time, it was recorded that the rate of magic users is declining. And that's a trouble for the ducal household as well. Because as time passed, people have started giving priority to quantity over quality. And by that he means they have changed the formula to concentrate on one specific element they're good with. So Alan is always finding new formulas to increase his elemental control. Ellie was good with only fire and wind, and aside from that she couldn't cast any other elemental spell. So Alan taught her some tricks with which she was able to do water magic. Sadly, Tina couldn't do the same, so every night Alan went to the library to do research and find a way to at least identify the cause of obstruction in her spellcasting. But Tina also did the same to always improve herself. Then as she went away, Shelley remained behind as she knew Alan was here. She's Graham's wife and the head maid here. And on behalf of Tina, she requested Alan not to leave out of frustration like other tutors did and abandon Tina midway. The part of why Tina even came to meet at the station is also because she was happy for having a new tutor because he's like a hope to her. So Alan again started diligently from the next day to teach fresh and new tricks to Ellie and Tina both. Yet things didn't seem to be working for Tina. So Alan showed a neat trick for dual elemental casting and made a mini version of his cat for the two. Then Alan received a letter from Lydia and she was pissed. But she also wanted him not to do that with Tina, what he did with her to improve Tina's magic. And besides that, she asked him the reason he failed his exams. She expects a full explanation by the time they meet again. And in the meantime, she told him to write a letter once a week from now on. After that, they started again and Tina wasn't improving at all while Ellie was getting ahead of her in magic. Every formula Alan tried wasn't working, and at this rate Tina won't be ready by the time of the entrance exam. And if Alan fails by then, he'll have to make the kid give up on the academy. So Alan worked day and night to find the cause of obstruction in her magic casting, yet he found nothing. The dude literally read more than 100 books in a month, and Tina knew this and felt so bad. More so, she was angry at herself for her incompetence, and yet Alan never scolded her or got angry at her incompetence, which made her emotions go amok and she unleashed an ice blizzard around her. And right, there are 2 episodes of the anime end. But don't worry, next 2 episode is on the way. But to watch that you have to subscribe and hit the bell icon, or you might miss the updates. So till next time guys, take care.